This is Vismaya and Shikhi, Kalyani and Harini and Divya. And we're going to sing a few Rama bhajans today before we start the reading. And the first song is going to be in Raga Malahari and in Triputatalam. The song is in praise of Sri Rama, and it talks about how he was the sole refuge of Vibhishana, who, despite being Ravana's brother, sought refuge in Rama, and Sri Rama willingly accepted him and blessed him. And there are several other praises of Sri Sita Rama in the song. So we'll sing that first. Padumanabha Parama Purusha Paranjoti Swarupa Vidura Vandya Vimala Charita Vihangadi Rohana Udadhi Nivasa Purada Shayana Unnatonata Mahima Yanukulotama Yajna Rakshaka Ajna Shishaka Rama Nama Padumanabha Parama Purusha Paranjoti Swarupa Vibhishana Palaka Namo Namo Ibhavaradayaka Namo Namo Shubha Prada Suma Norada Surendra Manoranjana Abhinava Purandara Vithala Ballare Ramanama Padumanabha Parama Purusha Ram 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 Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram 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 Dasharatha Nandana Ram 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 Dashamukhamardana Ram 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 Pashupati Ranjana Ram 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 Papa Vimochana Ram Ram Ram. Again. Dasharatha Nandana Ram 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 Dashamukhamardana Ram 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 पशुपतिरञ्जन राम 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 पाप विमोचन राम 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 जय राम राम राजा राम 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 जय राम 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 अनाथ रक्षक राम 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 आपद बांधव राम 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 मैथिली नंदन राम 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 मारुति सेवित राम 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 अनाथ रक्षक राम 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 आपद बांधव राम 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 मैथिली नंदन राम 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 मारुति वंदित राम 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 जय राम 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 दशरथ नंदन राम 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 दशमुख मर्दन राम 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 पशुपति रंजन राम 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 पाप विमोचन राम 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 जय राम राम राजा राम अनाथ रक्षक राम 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 आपद बांधव राम 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 मैथिली नंदन राम 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 मारुति वंदित राम 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 जय राम राम सीता राम जय राम राम राजा राम जय राम राम राजा राम समगमदनि सा सानिदा मगरि सा आ आ 1 2 3 start राम 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 रामायणिरो राम 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 रामायणिरो राम 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 रामायणिरो सीता राम 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 रामायणिरो सीता राम 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 ನೇಮದಿಂದ ಭಜಿಸುವ ವರ ಕಾಯಿತಗಳ ಕೊಡುವ ನಾಮ ನೇಮದಿಂದ ಭಜಿಸುವ ವರ ಕಾಮಿತಗಳ ಕೊಡುವ ನಾಮ ರಾಮ 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 ರಾಮಾಯಣಿರೋ ಸೀತಾ ರಾಮ 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 ಇಹದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಷ್ಟ ಉಂಟು ಪರದಲ್ಲಿ ಸುಖ ಉಂಟು ಇಹದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಷ್ಟ ಉಂಟು ಪರದಲ್ಲಿ ಸುಖ ಉಂಟು ವರ ಪುರಂದರ ವಿಠಲನ ಸ್ಮರಣೆ ಬಾಯಿಗೆ ಓದಾಗದೋ ವರ ಪುರಂದರ ವಿಠಲನ ಸ್ಮರಣೆ ಬಾಯಿಗೆ ಓದಾಗದೋ ರಾಮ 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 ರಾಮಾಯಣಿ Rama, Rama, Rama. Jai Shri Ram. Jai Hanuman.
Namaste. Welcome to the 11th reading in this continuum of the epic story of Sri Ramcharitamanas, also known as the Ramayana, as told by Sri Goswami Tulsidas. We're currently reading in the section depicting Sri Ram's childhood, Balkand, and youth. And this ongoing story is being read in parts every Saturday. So if you'd like to hear what's been read before, you can tune into the YouTube channel for this temple, Sankat Mochan Hanuman Temple, and catch up. So today we begin in the garden of King Janak. Both Lord Ram and his brother were delighted to behold the garden with its lake. Most lovely must have been that garden, which delighted even Sri Ram, whose name means the delighter of all. After looking all about, and with the consent of the gardeners, the two brothers began in high glee to gather leaves and flowers. On that very occasion, Sita too arrived there, having been sent by her mother to worship Girija. She was accompanied by her girl companions, who were all lovely and intelligent. They sang melodies that sounded as an enchanting voice. Close to the lake stood a temple sacred to Girija, which was beautiful beyond description and captivated the mind of those who looked at it. Having taken a dip in the lake with her companions, Sita went with a glad heart to Girija's temple. She offered worship with great devotion and begged of the goddess a handsome man worthy of her. One of her companions had strayed away from her in order to have a look at the garden. She chanced to behold the two brothers and returned to Sita overwhelmed with love. When her companions saw her condition, her body thrilling all over and her eyes full of tears, they all asked in gentle tones, "Tell us, what gladdens your heart?" She replied, "Two princes have come to see the garden, both of tender age and charming in every way. One dark of hue and the other fair. How shall I describe them? For speech is sightless, while the eyes are mute." All the clever maidens were delighted to hear this. Perceiving the intense longing in Sita's bosom, one of them said, "They must be the two princes, my dear, who I was told arrived yesterday with the sage Vishvamitra, and who have captivated the heart of men and women of the city by casting the spell of their beauty. All are talking of their loveliness here, there, and everywhere. We must see them, for they are worth seeing." The words of this damsel highly pleased Sita. Her eyes were restless for the sight of the princes. With that kind friend to lead the way, Sita followed. No one knew that hers was an old love. Recalling Narada's words, Sita was filled with innocent love, and with anxious eyes she gazed all around like a startled fawn. Hearing the tinkling of bangles, the small bells tied around her waist, and her anklets, Sri Ram thought within himself and then said to Lakshman, "It seems as if Cupid has sounded his kettle drum with intent to conquer the universe." So saying, he looked once again in the same direction whence the sound came, and lo, his eyes feasted themselves on Sita's countenance, even as the chakora bird gazes on the moon. His charming eyes became motionless, as if Nimi, the god of winking, had left the eyelids out of shyness. Sri Ram was filled with rapture to behold Sita's beauty. He admired it in his heart, but utterance failed him. He felt as if the Creator had put his whole creative skill in visible form and demonstrated it to the world at large. "She lends charm to charm itself," he said to himself, "and looks as if a flame of light is burning in a house of beauty." The similes already employed by the poets are all stale and hackneyed. To whom shall I liken the daughter of Videha? Thus describing to himself Sita's loveliness and reflecting on his own condition, the Lord Ram innocently spoke to his younger brother in terms appropriate to the occasion. "Brother, she is no other than the daughter of King Janak, for whom the bow sacrifice is being arranged. She has been escorted by her girl companions to worship Goddess Gauri and is moving about in the garden, diffusing light all about her. My heart, which is naturally pure, is agitated by the sight of her transcendent beauty. The reason of all this is known to God alone, but I tell you, brother, my right limbs are throbbing, which is an index of coming good fortune. It is a natural trait with the race of Raghu that they never set their heart on evil courses. As for myself, I am fully confident of my mind, which has never sought another's wife, even in a dream. Rare in this world are those noble men who never turn their back on the foe in battle, nor give their heart or cast an amorous glance on another's wife, and from whom no beggar meets with a rebuff." While Sri Ram was talking to his younger brother in this strain, his mind, which was enamored of Sita's beauty, was all the time drinking in the loveliness of her countenance, like a bee sucking the nectar from a lotus. Sita looked surprised all around. Her mind was at a loss as to where the princess had gone. Wherever the fawn-eyed princess cast her glance, a continuous stream of white lotuses seemed to reign there. Her companions then pointed out to her the two lovely brothers, the one dark, the other fair of hue, standing behind the fence of creepers. Beholding the beauty of the two princes, her eyes were filled with greed. They rejoiced as if they had discovered their long-lost treasure. Her eyes became motionless at the sight of Sri Ram's loveliness. Her eyelids, too, forgot to fall. Due to excess of love, her body consciousness began to fail. It looked as if a chakora bird were gazing at the autumnal moon. Receiving Sri Ram into the heart through the passage of the eyes, she cleverly shut him up there by closing the doors of her eyelids. When her girl companions found Sita overpowered with love, they were too much abashed to utter a word. At that very moment, the two brothers emerged from a bower. It looked as if a pair of spotless moons had shone forth, tearing the veil of a cloud. The two gallant heroes were the very perfection of beauty. Their bodies resembled in hue a blue and a yellow lotus, respectively. Charming peacock feathers adorned their head, which had bunches of flower buds struck there and here. A sectarian mark and beads of perspiration glistened on their brow, while graceful pendants shed their luster on their ears. With arched eyebrows and curly locks, eyes red as a lotus bud, and a lovely chin, nose, and cheeks. Their gracious smiles were soul enthralling. The beauty of their countenance was more than I can describe. It would put to shame a myriad cupids. They had a string of jewels on their breast. Their lovely necks resembled a conch shell in its spiral shape, while their mighty arms vied with the trunk of a young elephant. They were the very incarnation of Cupid. With a cup of leaves full of flowers in his left hand, the dark-hued prince was most charming. Beholding the ornament of the solar race, who had a slender waist like that of a lion and was clad in yellow, and who was the very embodiment of beauty and amicability, Sita's companions forgot their very existence. Recovering herself, one of her clever companions grasped Sita by the hand and said to her, "Meditate on Gauri afterwards. Why not behold the princes just now?" Sita then bashfully opened her eyes and saw the two lions of Raghu's race opposite herself. Surveying Sri Ram's beauty from his lotus feet to his head, and remembering her father's vow, she felt much perturbed. When Sita's companions saw her thus overcome with love, they all cried in alarm, "We are already late. Let us come again at this very hour tomorrow." So saying, one of them smiled within herself. Sita blushed at this pregnant remark. She got afraid of her mother, for she felt it was already late. Recovering herself with considerable effort, she received Sri Ram into her heart, and consciousness of her dependence on her sire, she returned home. Under pretense of looking at a deer, a bird, or a tree, Sita turned again and again, and each time she gazed on the beauteous hero of the Raghu's race. Her love waxed not a little. Drooping at the thought of the unyielding bow of Shiva, she proceeded with the image of the swarthy form in her heart. When the Lord Ram perceived that Janak's daughter, a fountain of bliss, affection, grace, and goodness, was going, he sketched her on this sheet of his heart with the soft ink of supreme love. Sita then sought Bhavani's temple and adored her feet, prayed to her with joined palms. "Glory, all glory to you, O daughter of the Mountain King. Glory to you who gaze on the countenance of the great Lord Shiv as a chikora bird on the moon. Glory to you, O mother of the elephant-headed Ganesh and the six-faced Kartikeya, and mother of the universe with limbs shining as lightning. You have no beginning, no middle, nor end. Your infinite glory is a mystery even to the Vedas. You are responsible for the birth, maintenance, and destruction of the universe. You enchant the whole universe and carry on your sports independently of others. Of all good women who adore their husband as a god, mother, you rank foremost. Your immeasurable greatness is more than 1,000 Sharadas and Sheshas could tell. The fourfold rewards of life, those being religious merit, worldly riches, sensuous enjoyment, and liberation, are easily attainable through your service, O bestower of boons, belover of Shiva. All who adore your lotus feet, O shining one, attain happiness, be they gods, men, or sages. You know well my heart's longing, since you ever dwell in the town of every heart. That is why I have refrained from openly declaring it. With these words, Videha's daughter clasped the feet of the image. Goddess Bhavani was overcome by her meekness and devotion. The wreath on the image dropped, and the idol smiled. Sita reverently placed the divine gift on her head. Gauri's heart was filled with delight while she spoke. Hear, Sita, my infallible blessing. Your heart's desire shall be accomplished. Narada's words are ever faultless and true. The suitor on whom your heart is set shall indeed be yours. The dark-complexioned and naturally handsome suitor of whom you are enamored shall indeed be yours. The gracious and omniscient Lord is aware of your fidelity and love. Sita and all her companions were delighted at heart to hear this blessing from Gauri's lips. Worshipping Goddess Bhavani again and again, Sita, says Tulsidas, returned to her abode, rejoicing in her heart. Finding Gauri favorably disposed toward her, Sita was more glad of heart than words can tell. Her left limbs began to throb, indicating her source of good fortune. Inwardly praising Sita's beauty, the two brothers returned to their guru, Vishwamitra. Sri Ram related everything to Kaushika, for he was innocent of heart and free from all guile. Having got the flowers, the sage performed his devotions and then blessed the two brothers, saying, "May your heart's desire be accomplished." Ram and Lakshman were glad to hear the benediction. After finishing his meals, the great and illumined hermit Vishwamitra began to recite old legends. The day was thus spent, and obtaining the Guru's permission, the two brothers proceeded to say their evening prayers. In the meantime, the charming moon rose in the eastern horizon. Perceiving that her orb resembled Sita's face, Sri Ram felt happy. The Lord then reasoned within himself, "The Queen of Night bears no resemblance to Sita. Born of the ocean with its salt water, with poison for her brother, dim and obscure by the day, and with a dark spot on her orb, how can the poor and wretched moon be matched with Sita's countenance? Again, the moon waxes and wanes. She is the curse of lovesick damsels and is devoured by Rahu when she crosses the latter's orbit. She causes anguish to the Chakravakra, the ruddy goose, and withers the lotus. O moon, there are numerous faults in you. One would incur the blame of having done a highly improper act by comparing you with the countenance of Videha's daughter." Thus finding in the moon a pretext for extolling the beauty of Sita's countenance, and perceiving that the night had far advanced, Sri Ram returned to his guru, and bowing at the sage's lotus feet and receiving his permission, Sri Ram retired to rest. At the close of the night, the Lord of Raghus woke, and looking toward his brother, he began to speak thus: "Lo, brother, the day has dawned to the delight of the lotus, the Chakravakra, and the whole world." Joining both of his palms, Lakshman gently spoke the following words, indicative of the Lord's glory: "The day having dawned, the lily has faded, and the brightness of the stars is dimmed. Just as at the news of your arrival, all the princes assembled here have grown faint. Though twinkling like stars, all the princes put together are unable to lift the thick darkness in the form of the bow. And just as the lotuses and bees and the Chakravakra and the various other birds rejoice over the termination of the night, even so, my Lord, all your devotees will be glad when the bow is broken. Lo, the sun is up, and the darkness has automatically disappeared. The stars have vanished out of sight, and the light flashes upon the world. Under pretense of its rising, O Lord of Raghus, the sun has demonstrated to all the princes the glory of yourself. It is in order to reveal the might of your arms that the process of breaking the bow has been set into operation. The Lord Ram smiled at these remarks of his brother. He who is pure by his very nature then performed the daily acts of purification and bathed, and after finishing the daily routines of prayer, etc., called on his guru, and the two brothers bowed their graceful heads at his lotus feet. Meanwhile, King Janak summoned his preceptor, Shatanand, and sent him at once to the sage Kaushika. Shatanand communicated to Vishvamitra Janak's humble submission, and Vishvamitra gladly sent for the two brothers. Adoring Shatanand's feet, the Lord Ram went and sat down by his guru. The sage then said, "Come on, my son, Janak has sent for us. Let us go and see how Sita elects her husband. We have yet to see whom Providence chooses to honor," says Lakshman. "He alone deserves glory, my lord, who enjoys your favor." The whole company of hermits rejoiced to hear these apt words, and with a delighted heart they all gave their blessing to him. Accompanied by the whole throng of hermits, the gracious Lord Ram then proceeded to visit the arena intended for the bow sacrifice. When the inhabitants of the town got the news that the two brothers had reached the arena, they all sallied forth, oblivious of their homes and duties, men and women, young and old, and even children. When King Janak saw that a huge crowd had collected there, he sent for all his trusted servants and said, "Go and see all the people at once, and marshal them to their proper seats." Addressing soft and polite words to the citizens, the servants seated them all, both men and women, in their appropriate places, whether noble or middling, humble or low. Meanwhile, there arrived the two princes, the very abodes of beauty, as it were, both oceans of goodness, polished in manners and gallant heroes, charming of forms, the one dark, the other fair. Shining bright in the galaxy of princes, they looked like two full moons in a circle of stars. Everyone looked on Lord Ram's form, according to the conception each had about him. Those who were surpassingly staunch in battle gazed on his form as though he was the heroic sentiment personified. The wicked kings trembled at the sight of the Lord, as if he had a most terrible form. The demons, who were cunningly disguised as princes, beheld the Lord as death in visible form, while the citizens regarded the two brothers as the ornaments of humanity and the delight of their eyes. With joy in their hearts, the women saw Lord Ram according to the attitude of mind each had towards him, as if the erotic sentiment itself had appeared in an utterly incomparable form. The wise saw the Lord in his cosmic form, with many faces, hands, feet, eyes, and heads. And how did he appear to King Janak's kinsman? Like one's own beloved relation. The queen, no less than the king, regarded him with unspeakable love, like a dear child. To the yogis, those who are ever united with God, he shone forth as no other than the highest truth, placid, unsullied, equipoised, and resplendent by its very nature. The devotees of Sri Hari beheld the two brothers as their beloved deity, the fountain of all joy. The emotion of love and joy with which Sita gazed on Sri Ram was ineffable. She felt the emotion in her breast, but could not utter it. How then can a poet describe it? In this way, everyone regarded the Lord of Ayodhya according to the attitude of mind each had towards him. Thus shown in the assembly of kings, the two lovely princes of Ayodhya, the one dark and the other fair of form, catching the eyes of the whole universe. Both were embodiments of natural grace. Even millions of cupids were a poor match for them. Their charming faces mocked the autumnal moon, and their lotus-like eyes were soul-ravishing. Their winning glances captivated the heart of even Cupid. They were so unspeakably endearing. With beautiful cheeks, ears adorned with swinging pendants, a charming chin and lips and a sweet voice, their smile ridiculed the moonbeams. With arched eyebrows and a beautiful nose, the sacred marks shone on their broad foreheads, and their locks of hair put to shame a swarm of bees. Yellow caps of a rectangular shape, which were embroidered here and there with figures of flower buds, adorned their heads. Their necks, which vied in their spiral form with a conch shell, bore a triple line which constituted, as it were, the high watermark of beauty in all the three worlds. Their breast was adorned with necklaces of pearls found in elephants' foreheads and wreaths of tulsi. With shoulders resembling the lump of a bull, they stood like lions and had mighty, long arms. They bore at their back a quiver secured with a yellow cloth wrapped round the waist, and held arrows in their right hands, while a bow and a charming sacred thread, also of yellow tint, were slung across their left shoulders. In short, the two princes were lovely from head to foot, and they were the very embodiments of great charm. Everyone who saw them delighted. People gazed at them with unwinking eyes, and their pupils, too, did not move. King Janak himself rejoiced to behold the two brothers. Presently he went and clasped the sage's lotus feet. Praying him homage, he related to him his story and showed him round the whole arena. Whithersoever the two elegant princes betook themselves, all regarded them with wonder. Every man found Sri Ram facing himself, but none could perceive the great mystery behind him. The sage told the king that the arrangements were splendid, and the king was highly satisfied and pleased to hear this. Of all the tiers of raised seats, one was beautiful, bright, and capacious above all the rest. The king seated the two brothers along with the sage thereupon. All the kings were disheartened at the sight of Lord Ram. Just as the stars fade away with the rising of the full moon, for they all felt inwardly assured that Ram would undoubtedly break the bow, or even if the huge bow of Shiva proved too strong for him, Sita would still place the garland of victory round his neck. They therefore said to one another, "Realizing this, brothers, let us turn homewards, casting to the winds all glory, fame, strength, and pride." Other princes, who were blinded with ignorance and pride, laughed at this and said, "Union with the princess is a far cry for Ram. Even if he succeeds in breaking the bow, who then can wed her without breaking it? Should death himself for once come forth amongst us, even him we would conquer in a battle for Sita's hand." At this, other princes, who were pious and sensible and devoted to Sri Hari, smiled and said, "Ram will certainly marry Sita," to the discomfiture of these arrogant princes. For who can conquer in battle the valiant sons of Dasarat? Do not thus brag unnecessarily. Hunger cannot be satiated with imaginary sweets. Listen to this, my most salutary advice. Be inwardly assured that Sita is no other than the mother of the universe. And recognizing the Lord of Raghus as the father of the universe, feast your eyes to their beauty. Fountains of joy and embodiments of all virtues, these two charming brothers have their abode in Shambhu's heart. Shambhu's heart. Leaving an ocean of nectar which is so near, why should you run in pursuit of a mirage and court death? Or else, do whatever pleases you individually. We, for our part, have reaped today the fruit of our human birth. So saying, the good kings turned to gaze with affection on the picture of incomparable beauty, while in heaven the gods witnessed the spectacle from their aerial cars, and raining down flowers, they sang in melodious strains. Finding it an appropriate occasion, King Janak then sent for Sita and her companions, all lovely and accomplished. They escorted her with due honor. Sita's least scruple may abandon. Sita's beauty defines all description, mother of the universe that she is, and an embodiment of charm and excellence. All comparisons seem to me too poor, for they have affinity with the limbs of mortal women. Proceeding to depict Sita with the help of those very similes, why should one earn the title of an unworthy poet in court, ill repute? Should Sita be likened to any woman of this material creation, where in this world shall one come across such a lovely damsel? The goddess of speech, Saraswati, for instance, is a chatterer, while Bhavani possesses only half a body, the other half being possessed by her Lord Shiv. And Rati, love's consort, is extremely distressed by the thought of her husband being without a form. And it is quite out of the question to compare Videha's daughter with Rama, who has poison and spirituous liquor for her dear brothers. Supposing there was an ocean of nectar in the form of loveliness, and the tortoise, serving as a base for churning it, was an embodiment of consummate beauty, and if splendor itself were to take the form of a cord, the erotic sentiment should crystallize and assume the shape of Mount Mandara, and the god of love himself would churn this ocean with his own hands. And if from such churning were to be born a Lakshmi, who is the source of all loveliness and all joy, the poet would even then hesitatingly declare her as analogous to Sita. Sita's clever companions escorted her to the arena, singing songs in a charming voice. A beautiful sari adorned her youthful frame. The mother of the universe was incomparable in her exquisite beauty. Ornaments of all kinds had been beautifully set in their appropriate places, each limb having been decked by her companions with great care. When Sita stepped into the arena, men and women alike were fascinated by her charms. The gods gladly sounded their kettle drums, while celestial damsels rained down flowers in the midst of songs. In her lotus-like hands sparkled the wreath of victory, as she cast a hurried glance at all the princes. While Sita looked for Sri Ram with an anxious heart, all the princes found themselves in the grip of infatuation. Presently, Sita discovered the two brothers by the side of the sage, and her eyes greedily fell on them as on a long-lost treasure. Out of natural bashfulness, that she felt in the presence of elders and at the sight of the vast assemblage, Sita shrank into herself, and drawing the hero of Raghu's race into her heart, she turned her eyes toward her companions. Beholding Sri Ram's beauty and Sita's loveliness, men and women alike forgot to close their eyelids. All of them felt anxious in their heart, but hesitated to speak. They inwardly prayed to the Creator, "Quickly take away, O Creator, Janak's stupidity and give him right understanding like ours, so that the king, without the least scruple, may abandon his vow and give Sita in marriage to Ram. The world will speak well of him, and the idea will find favor with all. On the other hand, if he persists in his folly, he shall have to rue it in the end. Everyone is absorbed in the ardent feeling that the dark-complexioned youth is a suitable match for Janak's daughter." Then King Janak summoned the heralds, and they came eulogizing his race. The king said, "Go round and proclaim my vow." Forthwith, they proceeded on their mission. There was not a little joy in their heart. And that concludes today's reading. Thank you.